There's no doubt that 5-inch quads just aren't as popular as they once were. And some of this is down to legislation making things difficult, but also 3 and 4-inch quads have got so good. You've got better motors, flight controller hardware, and Betaflight has improved a whole lot as well. Plus, they're just a lot cheaper to run. But 5-inch quads are about the best power to thrust ratio, and you only have to look at how the defaults are for Betaflight 4.2. They're optimised for a typical 5-inch quad. But a typical 5-inch quad is going to weigh around 400 grams. So the challenge is, can you make a good 5-inch quad that's got an all-up weight of under 250 grams? There's a few excellent build projects out there doing just that, but what about a bind and fly one that's ready to go? This X-Knight 5 from BetaFPV is just that. It's a super lightweight 5-inch quad. But is it any good? How does it fly? Is it going to end up in pieces when it crashes? Let's find out. Hello and welcome to the Whirly Bloke channel. So here we've got a 5-inch quad that's looking a bit anorexic. It's just like a regular X configuration quad but with these super skinny arms. And it weighs, well, let's have a look. That is 139 grams, and with this GMB 6S 550 milliampere pack, that is 247 grams. Yep, that's under 250 grams, and it's 6S. So if this holds together with that sort of power behind it, I suspect this is going to be a bit on the playful side. Now, the frame is a true X configuration and it's made from T800 carbon fibre, which is a relatively high durability and low weight carbon. And it's all nicely screwed together, and I really like these long fingers that protect the motor bells. It's a neat engineering design that just works. And the arms are 3.5mm and they're sandwiched between these two plates, and those are 1.5mm carbon. It's a very simple design, but actually it's pretty standard for an X configuration quad. And given how thin the arms are, it's a pretty stiff frame. It does flex a bit, but nowhere near as much as you'd think. Now, buried in here, there's a toothpick diamond style F4 base flight stack with a 4-in-1 35 amp ESC that's running BL Heli 32. And to be honest, it's a surprise this is so small considering it's 35 amp and it runs on up to 6S. The motors are BetaFPV 1805 1550 kV that are designed for 6S, and again these are super lightweight. They only weigh 16.1 grams each, and these are delivering 700 grams of thrust at 11 amps, which is an impressive spec. And they're matched to these Gemfan 5125 3-blade props. These are very low mass props, which is a really good match. If you want the props to spin up and down really quick, low mass is the way to go. The VTX is a tiny MO2 40-channel 5.8 gig board with smart audio support, and it's power switchable between 25 milliwatts up to 350 milliwatts. There's no spec on this antenna particularly, so you don't know if it's got any gain, but they specify the range is 600 meters. And that's sort of a bit weird because range is determined by your goggle antennas as well. I would have mine with an XM Plus receiver that's tucked up in here, and you can just about get to the bind button under the canopy. And this canopy is injection molded and it feels really tough. To be honest, it looks very much like the canopy that they use on the Beta 75, 85 and 95, which makes good manufacturing sense. The camera in here is the Cadex Baby Ratel, which is my current favourite mini-sized analog camera. They're just fantastic. The price on this whole thing is $200 or around £155, which is fantastically cheap for what you get. There's a more expensive HD version that uses a Cadex Vista in here, so you can use that with your DJI FPV goggles, but the whole thing is about $100 more. And I think this analog one will be more popular because it's such a great price. And I'll leave links in the description so you can check out the latest prices. So this all looks very, very promising. But one thing I really hated were the receiver antenna tubes. They were bolted on here and they flop about all over the place because they're just screwed into the canopy with no retaining nut. So it means you can't tighten it up properly. And I had planned to fly it with them like that, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I'd end up chopping them off in a crash. So I've repositioned them on zip ties that I've just strapped to the arms with a bit of heat shrink. That's all sort of fairly standard and a classic way of mounting your antennas safely. Now, I've moaned about this before loads of times, but mounting the low ESR noise suppression capacitor on this end of the battery cable is a complete and utter waste of time. I know there's not a lot of space in here, but it could have been soldered on the board end and buried inside the canopy. Right. So let's get this out for flight and see how it performs. It may look like nice sunny weather, but it's 0 degrees out here and it's freezing. We had snow last night and my fingers are now hurting. I only flew 2 packs and I had to stop because I couldn't move my fingers fast enough. So this is my second flight after I'd done a shakedown flight to check range and look for any nastiness. And as I suspected, this is a fast and agile quad. I mean, properly quick at turning and changing of direction and altitude. I haven't flown a 5-inch for about a year and I've forgotten just how good they are. Once you start throwing it round like a 5-inch, you do notice the lack of momentum, and that's probably down to the lack of weight. With a 5-inch, you can flick it into a manoeuvre and chop the throttle, and the mass of the quad keeps it moving and it slows down gradually. That gets you the nice flow. But with this, you chop the throttle and it sort of stops straight away. And this threw me for a while, but you do get used to it and you just tend to ride the throttle a little bit longer. I was just getting used to it when my fingers gave up because it was just too cold. I used GMB 550 mAh 6S packs, and this gave me around about 5 minutes of flight time, flying pretty hard to be honest. Remember that flying with a 6S is like having more torque for longer compared to a 4S, but it does drop off fast when the battery's done. One of the surprising things about this quad is that when you hit something, you think it would break because the arms are so thin. But actually, because it's such low mass, it sort of just bounces off stuff and doesn't break. I was really surprised. On my first flight, I did bump it into a tree. Not a dent. Incredible. Do I like it? I think it's fantastic, and it reminded me how much I like flying 5-inch quads. Unfortunately, regulations now mean it's more difficult to find spots to legally fly quads over 250 grams, especially in the UK. If you can keep it under 250 grams like this X-Knight 5, you can just fly where you used to fly. In fact, it gives you a bit more freedom and you can continue to have your FPV fun. As always, thanks for watching, and if you found that useful, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment. And if you want to see more like this, remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified when I post new content. I'll leave the flight running, enjoy it, and I'll see you next time.